Hey there, today's video is about the psych evaluation, the psychological evaluation required in the bariatric program when you are getting bariatric surgery. Could be gastric bypass or gastric sleeve. So this is my experience. I'm going to talk about how I felt before getting the evaluation, how I prepared for the evaluation mentally, and then how it went. My name is Josie. I'm a bariatric patient getting ready for a gastric sleeve surgery. I've been in a 6-month program and I'm scheduled for surgery on January 8th. So I finally have a date. If you've been following me, I've been unsure about when that date would be, and finally it's been scheduled. So I want to give you a heads up that most bariatric programs require a psychological evaluation before surgery. And this is typically both a requirement of the bariatric program as well as your insurance company if you're fortunate enough to have your insurance company pay for it or pay part of it. I was really worried about this test. I had a lot of questions about why it was necessary, and I was super defensive beforehand. So I spent some time preparing myself, and I had some questions for my evaluator when I got there. So I have the same educational background as the person who was doing the evaluation. The person who did the evaluation has a master's degree in psychology and is a limited licensed psychologist, and that was my training. I've been a homemaker now for about 12 years, but when I did work, that was my job. I was a limited licensed psychologist. So I was really defensive about having someone who I considered a peer evaluating me. Plus, I had 2 questions that were really important to know the answers to me. I wanted to know, was this a standardized test, meaning everyone who gets the test gets the same test and this is the same test or evaluation that people get in different bariatric programs, or was it just some random test that this particular program put together? I also wanted to know how the answers, the responses related to outcome. So if I responded in a certain way, how did that have anything to do with the outcome? Those answers, were really important to me to understand. So, like I said, I was feeling defensive and really kind of worried about this. I guess I just didn't know what was going to be asked and why. So I remember getting ready for this. I did my hair and my makeup. I wore a suit jacket, which is not part of my daily attire. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have no reason to wear a suit jacket. When I had the evaluation, it was in the summer. I don't remember. Maybe it was in June. It was right at the time where medical facilities in my area were just starting to make masks optional. And so you would go into some medical facilities and everyone would be masked, or no one would be masked, or half and half. And I really, and I live in an area where masking and vaccinations was expected and supported. I didn't want to wear a mask because I have RBF and I didn't want this part of my face covered up because I didn't want to look like I was angry. I was really cognizant of my facial expressions, and so I wanted to be able to be animated. But I was nervous because when I showed up, my evaluator, the psychologist evaluating me, was wearing a mask, and I was like, is she going to judge me for not wearing one? I'm not here to debate masks. Don't write to me about that. I was just worried, I asked her, I said, would you like me to wear a mask? And she actually paused and she's like, well, actually you don't have to. I choose to because I'm doing evaluations all day in a small office, so I choose to, but you are now permitted to make that decision yourself. So I made the judgment call to not wear a mask because I wanted her to see me express. I get these frown lines, and I just didn't want to be evaluated and look like this. So I didn't wear a mask. So I was nervous about that. So I was in our office, and the first thing I saw was an IQ test booklet, the Wechsler. It's an IQ test. That booklet was standing up on her desk, and I was like, I was hoping she wasn't going to administer it to me. So right off the bat, I'm like, oh, you've got the Wechsler there. I said, just so you know, I've administered that test a lot. I know all the answers. And she was like, oh, no, I'm not going to use that test. I'm just have it kind of concealing my notebook so it's not distracting to you in any way. And I can just kind of write while we're talking. So I just kind of have it as a shield. And then that went right into, so let's just go ahead and talk about your background since you brought that up. And so we talked about my educational and my professional history. And then I asked her the question about, is this a standardized evaluation? Is this an evaluation that you use for all of the bariatric patients in this program? And is it the evaluation that all programs use? And how does it relate to outcomes? So that was like the first thing I asked. And her answer didn't really satisfy me, but as I explain what was asked in the evaluation, the motive will become a little clearer for why this evaluation was put together. So her response to me was, well, it used to be a lot longer than it is now because of COVID and because of how we were doing a lot of this virtually for a while. We really shortened it to just ask the questions that were really pertinent, or the questions that the doctors really wanted answers to. So that's an interesting response. Didn't exactly answer my question, but I don't think she was prepared for that, and she's just administering the evaluation that she was given to do. Okay, so I got my defensiveness out of the way, and then we kind of started to go through things. And so we talked about my background, and the first questions she asked directly of me were like, who's in your family? Like, what's your family life like? Who's at home with you? What are your interests and lifestyle? What do you do with your time? What do you like to do for fun? And then she asked about family and friends and how they were responding to me about, did they know that I was getting surgery, and how did they feel about it, and what kind of feedback were they giving me, and how supportive were they? That was really interesting. So it's clear to me that the medical professionals in the bariatric program, it's clear to me that they value my having a supportive environment, or the bariatric patients having a supportive environment, because that's related to your success, right? If you have a supportive environment, you're more likely to succeed with the surgery. But it also kind of made me feel like, does it matter what other people think, or does it matter how I think and how committed I am? To me, I thought, what if a woman wanted to have her tubes tied to prevent having another pregnancy, or prevent having a pregnancy at all? What if she was making that decision for her body, and then the doctor said, what does your partner think about that? Like, is that okay to ask, or is that not? But it was clear to me that having a supportive environment was kind of a qualifier, or something to be discussed before having the procedure. Okay. I was asked to talk about what made me think about the idea of gastric sleeve surgery. So that was a response that I'd rehearsed even before I brought the idea to my primary care physician, before I even entered the bariatric program. So my response went something like, well, when I was getting ready for my annual physical, I was reflecting upon my health and realizing that yet again, another year has gone by and I haven't met my fitness part of my health goals. I haven't lost the weight that I've needed to lose, and I still have the medical conditions that are directly impacted by my weight. So I was reflecting on that, and I was thinking, gosh, I feel like I've tried everything, and I'm getting older, and like nothing is working. And then it just kind of dawned on me that I could give bariatric surgery a consideration, and I didn't know about the different types. I hadn't done research on that. I had just decided the night before I had my annual physical with my primary care physician that I was going to bring that up. So I did, and my rehearsed statement at the end of my physical was, so I'm ready to begin the very thoughtful process of considering bariatric weight loss surgery. And my doctor, to my relief, was like, yeah, that makes sense. I really thought she might offer one of those medications that people are taking to lose medication, those injections, Ozempic. I thought that she might offer that as a possibility, or try to have me meet with a nutritionist again or something, but she actually really condoned this and thought, you've been dealing with obesity for 20 years and it's just time to give this a consideration. So she told me about the program to consider that was affiliated with the university health system that I'm part of. So I went to their website. I was asked to watch a video, and I filled out a form, and then I did that in the evening, and the next day I was called. So I was asked, like, all of that to say that I was asked how I came to the decision to consider bariatric surgery. That was part of the evaluation. Just looking at my notes here, because otherwise I'll forget something. I was asked if I knew anyone who'd had surgery, and how it went. And I do know people who've had surgery and where it's gone well and not gone well. And so I was able to talk about my impression of what didn't go well for those individuals whom I'm aware of who've had the surgery where it hasn't gone well. And my interactions with individuals who've had surgery where it hasn't gone well is, I didn't know anything about the surgery, and those individuals did not communicate their needs in terms of what we might do together. So people would be not willing to say no. And if someone would say, hey, do you want to go out to dinner? Or do you want to go grab coffee? Or they would be in a situation when there's a buffet and they weren't able to exercise the restraint. So I guess, talking about your lifestyle and what you do for fun and who's in your life, it does make sense. So I was asked about that. I was asked what my friends and family thought about my surgery, and I felt like I needed to be honest because I've definitely had a mixed review with friends and family. I've only had one friend outright protest it, and I dealt with that. And then otherwise, I've had family members who were extremely supportive and kind of cheering me on. And every time I talk to them, they ask me how I'm doing in the program and like, have I gotten a date? And then my husband, I would say on the continuum from supportive to yay, on board, he's supportive, right? He definitely supports me. I think he's nervous and not as excited about the surgery as I am, but he's absolutely supportive. So I was asked about, again, other people's reactions. Okay. I was asked about eating disorders, which I think is kind of a funny thing. I'd like to know what would happen if someone admitted to having an eating disorder. Would they just require or refer you out for therapy? Would they disqualify you from the program? Would they think it's a great solution if you do? But I kind of basically said I have difficulty with portion control, and if I get together in a social situation, I tend to go overboard, or if I have kind of like emotional dysregulation. Like if I'm super excited or super sad, I'm inclined to overeat. That's all that I really said in response to that. Okay, so they asked me if I had an abuse history, and she didn't specify like what type of abuse. It was like a general question, like, do you have a history of abuse? And I thought that's an interesting question. And again, what if I said yes? Like, would that make me not a good candidate? What kind of follow-up would you give me if I opened up that can of worms? Like, why are you asking me if I have an abuse history? I just said no. Wasn't pushed on that question any further than that. And then I was asked some questions, like, then we got into like specific things I had to answer. So I was asked, this was so crazy to me. I was asked to name as many words that I could think of that started with the letter F. And I was like, what? And I was just super compliant. I just wanted to get through it. So do you want to know the first couple words I said? So the first word that I said, and she was timing me, so it was like a minute of me rattling off as many words as I could say that started with the letter F. The first word that I said rhymes with truck. And the second word I said was fart. And the third word I said was flatulence. And then I just kept going and going and going and going and going. And I didn't start laughing. I didn't break, I want to say break character, but I just kept plowing through because I didn't know why she was asking me that. And I just wanted to do as well as I could. So I just kept going and going and going. And I brought this up to a friend, and I'm like, why was I asked to say as many words I could think of that started with the letter F? And my friend was like, they probably wanted to see what if you said fat right away. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It just seems so random. I was asked about some common sense questions. So I think they wanted to understand your ability to make rational decisions, or to weigh pros and cons, or just your decision-making ability. I was asked questions like, why is it important to bathe? And why is it important to blow out a candle? And just, common sense questions like that. I was asked to repeat back I was asked to repeat. She would give me a long string of words, or a long string of letters and numbers, and I was asked to repeat those back to her. I probably did the worst on that because I think of anxiety and then just a general tendency towards ADHD. I've never been diagnosed, but I feel I am definitely afflicted. Okay. All right. So those were direct questions I remember being asked. And then I was asked about what I am doing differently now that I'm in the program with my diet and exercise. And I tell you, all of the bariatric appointments I've attended have asked about that. So I talked about what I do for exercise, how I eat now, how I believe I'll have to eat later. And then I told her that I was deliberately putting myself in situations that could be challenging after the surgery to kind of get used to that. So initially I was deliberately putting myself in situations where other people around me were drinking alcohol and I chose not to. I was putting myself in situations where people would have dessert and I would abstain from that. Or I would be at a potluck and I would take smaller servings, and I'm really noticing now how much food people eat. Oh my gosh. We just celebrated Thanksgiving, last week, and holy cow. I don't know. I'm just very cognizant of how we all eat. One question that I've always had at all my appointments that I feel very anxious about, and every time I have an appointment I need to be reassured, is I'm afraid if I lose any weight during the program, which I'm required to do, that I will not be taken seriously, that it's difficult for me to lose weight, and that I will not qualify for surgery. I was kind of like right on the cusp of qualifying, and because I had some medical conditions that could be impacted by being overweight, I qualified. But like when I'm like 5'2", I started at 220. My BMI was like 39 point something. Some programs won't do it unless you're over 40. Some 40% 40 for a BMI. Some insurance programs won't cover it if you're under that, and then some, I think bariatric programs are a little more flexible. But I was like 39, and I knew I'd lose weight during the program. I knew that was going to be part of a requirement. What's interesting about these programs is that you are required to lose weight, and you are simultaneously required to prove or demonstrate that you have not been able to lose weight doing anything else. So you have to lose weight, and you have to prove that you can't lose weight. And so I was always anxious that I would slip down to a point where I would no longer qualify for the surgery, and then I would get stuck. So so far I've lost like almost 20 pounds. I kind of hover around 200, 202, and I started at 220. And I've been stuck at that point for 3 months, which is what happens, right? I mean, it's like I've memorized this song. I know the chorus, you know, this is what happens. This is where I get stuck. But while I was losing that weight over the first 3 months of the program, I would ask every visit, what if I lose a certain amount of weight? I'm no longer going to qualify for this, and I'll be stuck again. And they constantly were reassuring me the number that matters is the number that you started the program with. So that 220 is what qualified me. And then you just have to lose weight. There wasn't a determined amount that I had to lose, but that was something that I talked about with the psychologist. And the first time I had an indication that she was supportive of the surgery was like, well, I hope that you get to have the surgery sooner rather than later. And at the end of the evaluation, I mean, she didn't like tell me how I did, but I think she indicated somehow that she was going to approve or give her sign off on it. So my primary care physician had written a letter of support. I had already met with the surgeon and reviewed everything. I'd met with two physician's assistants. I'd met with, I had nutritional counseling with a registered dietitian, all these hoops that you jump through. And then I got the sign off from the psychologist. So, whew. So I hope I've answered any questions. I have watched other YouTube videos. There is a YouTuber called, she goes by Bariatric Coaching, I think. I'll link her below. But she kind of goes over the whole process in one video of like deciding to be in the program, and then she kind of documents some of her visits, and then she talks about the psych evaluation. Her experience was a lot different than mine. There were tissues involved, you know, like tissues to wipe her teary eyes and hers, and she got more deeply into it. And I think her evaluation was different than mine. So again, it's not standardized, and how does it relate to outcomes? I don't know. So if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. If there's something you were curious about that I didn't answer, I would love to know. I would love if you would like, share, and subscribe. I am a new YouTuber if you're watching me in real time, but maybe I'm post-surgery when you've found me and now you're going back and rewatching the videos. Either way, welcome, and thanks for listening.